Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We're so happy to see you, and we're happy to see Rabanit K. Thank you very much for coming and give us to enjoy. And I give to Rabanit K. to start and enjoy.
That was an amazing introduction. Stay here a second, Mira.
Okay, why?
First of all, ברוכות הבאות, ברוכות הנמצאות. You should know, first of all, I just came in from Eretz Yisrael this morning. Yeah, I'm still like, I still didn't sleep. Wow. So for me right now, what time is it? 8:30? It's 3:30 in the morning. Wow. Don't worry, I'm going to get my second wind. And hopefully you brought your sleeping bags because we're going to be here a good few hours. We have a packed program for you tonight. But this evening would not have been made possible without the efforts, the ma'asim tovim, the actions of very special people. And of course, we know that one of them is our amazing and dear Mira. No, that's not good enough for me. Who is always thinking of ways to make the women happy. And you don't even know how hard she works. She came here at, I think, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And she's been here ever since. She hasn't left. She set up together with Dina, right? Dina, where are you? Dina, together with Dina, set up, prepared. We made the challah dough for you. It's just, Mira, it's women like you, first and foremost,
everybody,
who display so much rachamim. That's the key to life, to be compassionate towards people. And you have compassion towards everybody, no matter who they are, or what their background is. That is the key that's going to open up for you the gates to the Geula. Be'ezat Hashem. And everybody, but especially you. You're in America, so you're going to open the gates for all these women. I'm going to wait for you on the other side of the gate, in Eretz Yisrael. Aval Mira, I want to give you a bracha in front of everybody here tonight. That Be'ezat Hashem Yitbarach, for all your efforts that you have made for the last few years with Ohel Sarah, helping us, help others. Be'ezat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yizakeh Otach, should give you a zchut that you should, with your own eyes, see the Mashiach in this generation this year. Amen. This year, Be'ezat Hashem. And join us with the rest of the ladies in Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh.
Amen.
And Be'ezat Hashem, the next party that we make should be a Mashiach party.
Amen.
For the ladies.
Amen.
And you're going to prepare. You're going to be the one to prepare, Be'ezat Hashem.
Be'ezat Hashem.
Thank you so much. She deserves it. She deserves it. Ladies, we have an incredible evening ahead. We are here tonight to celebrate a few yartzites. First of all, we know that it is the Hilula, the yartzeit of Rachel Imeinu Alea Shalom. We also have a double header because we have the yartzeit of Rivka Imeinu as well. So tonight we have a double bonus, Rivka and Rachel. So you got the double bonus, and everything that we're going to do here tonight is going to make our two imahot in the Shamayim so happy that maybe Rachel will stop crying for once. Because as you know, she cries and cries and cries and doesn't stop crying for all the children, mevaka al baneha ki enenu, the ones who have been lost. And we're a lost generation. Be'ezrat Hashem, in the merits of what we're going to do here tonight, of the singing and the tefillot that we're going to recite, the tzedakah that we're giving, the hafrashat chala, the dancing, the kabbalat ol malchut shamayim, everything that we do here tonight should be channeled upwards towards the imahot, so that they can run to the Ribono Shel Olam in the Shamayim and be melitzot yosher to bring the Geula. To bring the Geula bekarov mamash. We're going to light candles. Tonight's event has been sponsored Leilui Nishmat Raya Rachel Bat Miriam, Dina's mother, Alea Shalom. Daniel ben Tzipora, Mira's uncle, Alav HaShalom. Zoya bat Bachmal, Margalit's grandmother, is she here? No, she didn't come. Alea Shalom. And Rochelle ben Leah, Mira's uncle, Alav HaShalom. So I'm going to ask Dina and Mira to please come around, and you're going to light the candles for your loved ones, and also for Rachel Imeinu, for Rivka Imeinu. You ready? Let's go. The honor, the kavod. You go ahead. You go ahead. Where's your clapping? Let's go. There's rhythm over here. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Come on. You know what he's saying in the song? He's saying, Ba'olam hazeh, in this world, what does money really mean? Nothing. Because at the end of the day, the money stays in the pocket, but what goes up to Shamayim with you is what? The chesed that you do, the ma'asim tovim that you do. So today we're going to empty out your pockets. So you have a double bonus. Hey, how are you? I'm so happy you're here. Tonight is Rachel Imeinu's yahrzeit. I also want to dedicate this shi'ur to the refuah shlema of Menachem ben Esther. He's donating his kidney tomorrow.
My son.
And he doesn't even know who he's donating it to. He doesn't even know. And by the way, you'll understand why that's such a big chesed when I tell you about the Rachel Imeinu now. You're going to understand why that's such a... Tonight is Rachel Imeinu's yahrzeit, whose fascinating stories appear in Sefer Bereshit. You know, many times in the Torah HaKadosha, you will see words that you think have no significance. But behind those words are very intricate and hidden matters. The Torah uses one word or a few words that opens up a window into the life of the tzaddikim that's not written in detail in the Torah. I'll give you an example. The story of Avraham Avinu alav hashalom being thrown into the fiery furnace by the king Nimrod, it's not written anywhere in Sefer Bereshit. So how do we know that that story actually took place? We know because of two words that were written in the Torah. Ur Kasdim. Ur means fire. Because of that one word, Rashi HaKadosh alav hashalom tells us that there was a fire that Avraham Avinu was thrown into, and he allowed himself to possibly die al Kiddush Hashem. And Hashem made a miracle, of course, we know, and saved Avraham from those fires. Why doesn't the Torah Kedosha tell us the story? Why do we need Rashi to tell us what happened? Avraham was the first man in thousands of years to believe in one God. He was willing to die for God. That's a story that should be clearly written in the Torah. And yet you have to leave it to hidden codes and words that reveal the story. And the Torah just gives us two words. Ur Kasdim. And that's supposed to be a hint to the story of the fiery furnace. And the Chachamim have to try to figure it out, what happened to Avraham, based on a remez, a hint, based on something the Torah alludes to in a word, or a combination of words. So the word is the key to the secret of what's not written in the Torah. Why do these stories have to remain a mystery that we have to try and figure out? Avraham Avinu jumping into a fire to give his life for Hashem is not something that should be a secret. It should be something that we know about in the psukim themselves. Why does the Torah do that? You know why? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu is sending us a message. What message? The message is that we're different from the Goyim. When the Goyim do something small, notice, they make a huge deal about it. The Jews are the exact opposite. We do big things, and we do those things quietly. Emor me'at v'aseh harbeh. We do big things behind the scenes, but we talk very little about it, if at all, if at all. So the Avot HaKadoshim, they were teaching us the quality of a Jew. We're here in this world in order to do great things for God. And if there's not a stitch of ga'ava in the chasadim and ma'asim that we're involved in, there's no reason to talk about them or to make a big deal about what we did. We don't need the fanfare, and we don't need the kavod of other people. It's enough for us to know. It's enough for Hashem to see and recognize what we've done. So tonight, ladies, we're going to talk about one very quiet, behind-the-scenes moment that's one of the greatest moments in Jewish history, and that's why you're here tonight. And that moment was such a huge moment that it became the turning point of Am Yisrael, and it affected our future and the coming of Mashiach. Tonight, you're going to learn the story, we're going to say the real story of Rachel Imeinu and her greatness and why you're here tonight. You're going to learn that the gadlut, the greatness of Jews, The greatness of the avot and the imahot were the things that they did quietly, that created big moments. The things that they did that were not spoken about, not even in the Torah. Not even in the Torah. We actually have to read and uncover the secret and the greatness in these stories. You see, Jews are like the atom. You know what an atom is? The greatest and most potent bomb that was ever made in world history was called the atom bomb. And yet the atom is the smallest chemical element that has in it a great deal of nuclear energy. How is that possible? The smallest of the small creates the largest of the largest explosions. How does that work? That's Yahadut. The smaller you make yourself, the greater you are. That was the greatness of the Avot HaKadoshim. So you ready for me to tell you the story? We're going to do it in two parts. Part one, then we're going to take a break and do Hafashat Chala, more singing, some dancing, and then we'll come back. Tov, you ready for this? Listen what happens. The Torah Kedosha tells us, Yaakov Avinu alav shalom arrives in Haran, and it's there that he meets Rachel Imeinu. He immediately feels a connection towards her, and he knows she's going to be his wife. So he approaches Lavan, the crook. Lavan was a crook, her father, and he tries to make a deal with him in order to attain Rachel's hand in marriage. Lavan says, you want her? You're going to have to work for 7 years in order to marry Rachel. That was the deal. What happened after 7 years of hard work? We all know what happened. On the night of the wedding, Lavan the crook switched Rachel with who? With Leah. By the way, just a little secret you should know. The Ashkenaziyot, yeah? If you're Ashkenazi, sometimes you come to the weddings, bar mitzvahs of the Sfaradim, and you hear a lot of the Sfaradim going, lu, 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 and you don't know why that's happening. What's with the lu, 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 lu? It's from the Torah. Rashi HaKadosh says that all the people that were in the wedding, they knew that it was Leah over there under the chuppah, not Rachel, and they were trying to tell Yaakov. So Rashi HaKadosh says that they kept screaming to him, Hile'ah, 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 like this. That's what we get it from. Be'emet, you think I'm joking? I'm not joking. It's just we turned it into la 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 la, but the original is Hile'ah, Hile'ah, Hile'ah. This is Leah, this is Leah. Anyway, we all know what happened on the night of the wedding. Lavan switched Rachel with Leah, and it was Leah that stood under the chuppah instead of Rachel. The next morning, after the wedding, Yaakov woke up and he realized, Vehine Leah. Oy. It's Leah in his tent and not Rachel. So what does he do? He runs to Lavan and he says, why did you do this to me? I worked all these years for Rachel and you gave me Leah? Why? And instead of apologizing, Lavan ha'arami, the crook, says to him, what do you mean? Well, you don't know the minhag? We don't marry off the younger sister before the older one. The older one gets married first. Leah is the older one. If you want to marry Rachel also, the younger one, you're going to have to work another 7 years. Yaakov wanted Rachel so much that he agreed to work another 7 years. But this time, he made a deal with Lavan. He says, okay, I'll work another 7 years, but I have to marry her now. You give it to me now, I'm not going to wait another 7 years, then I'm willing to do it. Yaakov Avinu worked a total of 14 years in order to marry Rachel. And I want to know, and I'm sure you want to know too, how did this happen? How could this have happened? Yaakov was a very smart man. He knew that Lavan couldn't be trusted. And indeed, the Midrash tells us that Yaakov and Rachel discussed the possibility that Lavan is going to try to switch Rachel with Leah. So Yaakov and Rachel created simanim. They made up signs that only they would know, so that when Yaakov meets Rachel under the chuppah, Rachel would give him the simanim, and then he would know it's really her. These simanim were very important. The simanim were the Chachamim say they were questions that had to be answered correctly. And if they were not answered correctly, Yaakov would know, oh, I was tricked. So the simanim were the key to that night. Now, ladies, try to remember that in those days, the level of tzniut was very high. Women used to wear very thick veils under the chuppah. It's not like the veils that today the women wear, where you could see straight through the material. If Rachel would have worn the veil that we wear today, the story would never have happened, because Yaakov would have seen that it's her and the story is over. That's the level of tzniut. But because the material was so thick, Yaakov didn't see that it was Leah under the veil and not Rachel. So what does Rachel do? She knew that her father switched her with Leah. She also knew that at this very moment her sister Leah is in a horrible position where she's about to experience one of the worst embarrassments a person can feel. Because if Leah is exposed and people find out what really happened, you know what kind of busha that's going to be? Here she is, standing under a chuppah in a wedding gown, thinking she's the kala, she's the bride. The wedding is full of people from the entire town. Imagine if Yaakov, the Chatan, realized it's not Rachel under the chuppah, and he stops the wedding and he says, Rabotai, I'm very sorry, but this is not the woman that I worked for 7 years. This is Leah. I want Rachel. Could you imagine the embarrassment? Yes or no? Because of this, Rachel felt rachamim for her sister, and she gave her the simanim that she and Yaakov made up between themselves. And she did it so that when Yaakov asks the questions that need to be answered correctly, Leah will know how to respond. When she will answer accordingly, Yaakov will believe that it's Rachel. And Rachel did what she did in order to avoid the embarrassment of her sister Leah. Yaakov married Leah, thinking it's Rachel. Until the next morning, after the wedding, then he realized it was her. Ladies, we could all imagine what Rachel Imeinu risked in order to do this. Not only did she risk having Yaakov Avinu be angry with her, But Yaakov could have told her, Rachel, how could you do this to me? You double-crossed me. I trusted you. I gave you the signs, and you betrayed me. I worked for 7 years for your hand in marriage, and you went and you gave the simanim to your sister? I don't know what to say about you, Rachel. You betrayed me. I don't know if I could ever trust you again. How could I marry a woman who can't be trusted? So Rachel Imeinu risked her entire relationship with her beloved Yaakov. She gave up the possibility of ever being the mother who'd give birth to the Shevatim of Yosef and Benjamin. Why in heaven's name would she do this? She did this in order to prevent the shame and embarrassment that her sister would feel. You with me? You with me? But there's more. Guess what? There's more. Listen to this now. You ready? You're going to be shocked. Shocked. So pay close attention. As we know, after Yaakov married Rachel, Leah was the first of the two sisters to start giving birth. She had Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. She had 4 boys already. Rachel Akara, no babies. One day, Reuven came home from the fields with special flowers called dudaim. The dudaim had a special quality that any woman who had a hard time conceiving ate the seeds from the dudaim flowers, and she quickly becomes pregnant. So Reuven comes home with these very special flowers and brings them to his mother Leah. Suddenly, Rachel sees Leah holding the dudaim. Rachel has no children. Leah already has 4 sons. So Rachel tells Leah, please give me some of your sons' dudaim. Tni li na midudai benech. Please give me these flowers so I can have a chance to have a baby. I ask you, if you were Leah, would you give the dudaim? What does Leah tell Rachel? Get ready for the shocker now. What does Leah tell Rachel? Listen to these words, what she tells her. Ready? She says to her, Hama'at kachtech et ishi. It's not enough you took my husband away from me. Velakachat gam et dudaei beni. Now you also want to come and take the flowers from my son? Excuse me? Leah? What did you just say? Do you know who you're talking to? You're talking to Rachel. You're talking to the sister who gave you the simanim on the night of the wedding so that you should have a wedding. And she did it in order to spare you the world-class embarrassment that you would have felt in front of the whole town. Rachel risked her marriage and her whole life for you, and now you're coming along and accusing her of taking away your husband? If it wouldn't be for Rachel, you wouldn't have a husband. She didn't take away your husband from you. She gave you a husband. What's wrong with you, Leah? What's wrong? Where's your hakarat hatov for the woman who helped you avoid such a huge embarrassment and gave you the ability to have a happy life and to be the mother of the Shevatim? How do you come along and not only do you deny her the dudaim that can help her, but you also accuse her of taking away your husband? That's a chutzpah of the highest caliber. Isn't it? Isn't it? If you were Rachel, what would you do? See, you're also Middle Eastern, meaning you come from Sfaradia. 2 slaps across this face, chick, chick, and salamak, right? Ladies, Rachel hears these horrible words coming from the mouth of the sister who she helped. And what does she respond to Leah? She doesn't respond to those words. She keeps quiet and she doesn't say a word about this. Could you believe this? I just asked you, if you were Rachel, how would you have responded? You know what we would say. You would slap. I wouldn't slap. I would just say, Leah, did you just say that I took your husband away from you? I'm the reason you're married to Yaakov to begin with. If it wasn't for my act of rahamim on that night, you would have ended up with Esav Harasha. And you would have ended up with the biggest busha of the century. I took away your husband. I gave you your husband. I made it possible for you to be married to the Gadol Hador and to have his children who are going to be the Shevatim. I risked everything for you. And you not only refuse to share the dudaim with me, but you accuse me? What a chutzpah she'en kamoa. Leah, you're an ingrate. You have no hakarat hatov. And on top of that, you're cruel. You're cruel. You can't even share with me the dudaim that can bring me a little happiness. That's what we would have said. That's what we would have said. Thank you for saying and more. But Rachel kept quiet and she doesn't respond to Leah's words. Instead, you know what she tells her? You know what she tells her? You're not going to believe what she tells her. She says to these words, Lachen, because you feel the way you do, tonight I'm going to give you my night in the tent of Yaakov, if you give me the dudaim. I'm supposed to be with Yaakov tonight, but I'm willing to give up that night with him and give it to you if you're willing to give me some of the dudaim. Let's make a trade. I give you my night and you give me the dudaim.
What's the name?
The flowers.
What's the name?
Wow. You hear this conversation? You hear this conversation? How do you understand this? Why didn't Rachel simply give Leah a piece of her mind, give us some musar that she deserved? Why didn't she tell her off and be done with it? You know what the answer is? I'm going to tell you this answer and then we're going to stop here and then we'll continue. It's interesting, no? Listen to this. This is... You read these stories and you say, wow, this is unbelievable. But you also... Hopefully you read these stories and you say, I wish I could be like this. I wish I could be like this. By the way, after this story, you're gonna think you won't slap anybody anymore. Chachamim tell us the reason why Rachel did not give Leah the very much deserved musar, get ready for this, is because Leah never knew that Rachel gave her the simanim in the first place. What? Because Rachel, in another act of kindness, gave Leah the simanim. She gave Leah the answers to the questions without Leah ever knowing that these answers over here are the key to marrying Yaakov. Now, I want you to think about it, because the Chachamim tell us like this. Think about it. If Leah, I want you to think as a woman. You're a woman, and many of you are married women. Listen to this. Think about it. If Leah would have known that Rachel and Yaakov made up simanim between them in order to make sure that Leah is not the one who ends up with Yaakov, how would that make Leah feel? If you were Leah, how would you feel? How would you feel you're Leah living with a man who went out of his way to make sure you don't marry him? How would you feel? Tell me the truth. How would you'd slap him too? I'm asking you. How would you feel being married to a man that you knew did all of this just not to marry you? How would you feel?
I would divorce him.
Oh, she's saying I would divorce him. So Rachel never told Leah, I'm giving you the simanim. If you answer correctly, Yaakov is going to think it's me, and then he'll marry you. She didn't do that. In an ultimate act of kindness and compassion, what did Rachel do? She gave the simanim without Leah ever knowing that she was being given the simanim. How was she able to do this? Well, when Yaakov and Rachel were engaged, the Midrash tells us, Yaakov comes over to Rachel. He's a man. You know how men are. They're very possessive over their property. And he says, Rachel, I know your father is a crook. I know he's a trickster. I know he's going to try to deceive me and switch you with Leah on the night of the wedding. I know it. So let's create simanim between each other so that when I come to marry you on that night, I will be able to know that it's you. And since you're going to be wearing a very thick veil and I won't know that it's you, I'm going to ask you some questions that only you and me know. And when you answer correctly, I'll know it's really you under the chuppah. The simanim will help prevent your father from tricking me. What were the simanim? The Gemara tells us the simanim were certain halachot. What halachot? Yaakov taught Rachel the halachot of taharat hamishpacha. All the laws of family purity that a woman needs to uphold, he taught her the laws of a husband and a wife and how they have to live together, b'kedusha. He taught her the laws of nidah. He taught her the laws of mikveh. Those were the simanim, according to one opinion. So Yaakov was going to ask Rachel some of these questions under the chuppah, these halachot. If she answers correctly, he knows it's her. Because she was the only one in the entire town who he taught these halachot to. Nobody else knew. So what did Rachel do? very nonchalantly means like you know what? She goes over to his sister and she starts to teach her all the halachot of Taharat HaMishpacha. Rachel was the first Kalo teacher. Single Kalo teacher, yet she wasn't even married. So when Leah was learning the halachot from Rachel, she thought that Rachel was just trying to help her prepare for marriage. Leah has no clue that the lessons that she's learning here is the key to her future with Yaakov. She didn't know that Rachel is teaching over here the simanim. So that when Yaakov asks Leah the halacha questions under the chuppah, she thought Yaakov is just making sure I know what I'm going into. She had no idea that she's answering the questions that are the key to her marriage. That means that Leah never knew the great sacrifice that Rachel did for her. She never knew about the simanim that Rachel and Yaakov created before the wedding, which means that Rachel spared her sister from every possible embarrassment and shame that she might feel. She made sure that Leah married Yaakov thinking that Yaakov really loved her and wanted to marry her. Do you hear this? That's why when Reuven came home with the dudaim, these special flowers, and Rachel asked Leah, can you give me some of the dudaim? That's why Leah says to her, it's not enough you took my husband, who obviously loves you more, you now also want my son's flowers? What a chutzpah. But now we know why she said it, because she had no idea what really happened. If she had an idea, would she talk like this? She had no idea that Rachel gave her the simanim and that she gave up Yaakov in order for Leah to marry him. Leah knew nothing. Whoa. So I'm going to end with this. Everything Rachel did, notice she did quietly without anybody knowing. She was the only one who knew what really took place. Nobody else did, not even Yaakov knew. Rachel didn't use other people to achieve her goals. She didn't get anybody involved. She took every precautionary measure to preserve her sister's dignity. Rachel, all by herself, with no outside assistance, did the greatest chesed with her sister without her sister ever knowing and without anybody ever knowing.
How it's possible?
You see that it's possible. Leah never knew. Lavan never knew about it. The town didn't know about it. Yaakov didn't even know about it until the day after the wedding. Nobody knew. The Gemara says it was just her and Hashem. Oh, those two knew. Nobody else knew. That's the level of preservation of embarrassment. That's how careful we have to be. Lo levayesh. Lo levayesh. In Judaism, big people do great things all on their own. And they do it in the most quiet and unassuming way. The big things we do, the great deeds we engage in, we have to do it in the most quiet way. It's the chasadim that nobody knows about. Only us and Hashem. That's why Leah accused Rachel of taking away her husband instead of realizing how much she sacrificed in order to give Leah her husband. That's also the reason why Rachel didn't answer Leah and kept quiet. It's because Rachel knew all the precautions that she took to make sure that Leah never knows the truth. So Rachel kept quiet and she never answered her. But because she needed those dudaim, she was willing to give up her one night with Yaakov and give that night to Leah. Now ladies, do you understand how huge this moment in history was? Do you understand this? This was a huge moment in history. Because it's not only the fact that Rachel gave away the simanim without Leah knowing what they were. It's not only that Rachel risked her entire relationship with Yaakov and the possibility that she would never marry him or be the mother to the Shvatim. But everything she did for Leah, she did it in a way that Leah would never know. Do you know why that's such a huge mesirut nefesh? Because no one, absolutely no one was involved in the chesed that Rachel did for Leah. Not even Yaakov knew until after it was done. Yaakov sadly found out the hard way, you know, when he woke up the next morning and he saw Leah instead of Rachel, but no one knew about the chesed that Rachel did with Leah. Nobody was involved, only Rachel and Hashem. And because nobody knew, guess what? Rachel was never appreciated for the kindness that she did. She never even got a thank you. But worse, instead of a thank you, what did she get? What did she get instead of a thank you? She got a huge accusation. And she still kept quiet. Wow. Do you know the greatness of this act? I just want to tell you. Stam azay. Woman to woman. Sometimes when you want to do a chesed in order to help somebody, and you want to do it anonymously. You know what anonymous is. You don't want anybody to know. But you tend to get many people involved. You tell your husband, then you get your neighbor involved because you don't want it to know it came from you, so you send your neighbor, and then your neighbor tells the friend gets involved. Pitom, a number of people are involved in the one chesed that I want to do for a person who I don't want should know that I did that chesed for him. But guess what? 10 people know about it already. Instead of trying to figure out a way that I can do the chesed all by myself without anybody knowing about it, only me and Hashem, like Rachel did, what did I do? I got a number of people involved, bunch of people involved, and I make the person that I'm doing the chesed for appear like an even worse chesed case. What kind of chesed is it when 10 people now know who the chesed is being done for and why? That's a chesed? That's an embarrassment. And by the way, what are the odds? What are the odds that from those 10 people, one of those people from that group won't slip one day and tell the person that you wanted to help about the chesed that was done, or how people were talking about the chesed that was being done, which also may be embarrassing, right? So Chachamim tell us that Rachel took every precaution to ensure nobody, not Leah, not even Yaakov, knew the chesed that she did. She kept quiet. She did it all by herself without anybody knowing. And she did it with the understanding that Yaakov is going to find out about it and he's going to feel betrayed. She did it with the knowledge that he might never want to marry her after that. She did it knowing she's risking her future, and she took that chance to spare the shame and embarrassment of her sister. That's what Chachamim say is greatness. That's Imeinu, whose yahrzeit we're celebrating tonight, by the way. And she is here with us tonight. Ladies, Rachel is here with us tonight. And you know what you should feel? We should feel. We should feel humbled in her presence. And anything, and here's the crux of tonight. Anything we're going to do here tonight quietly, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to quietly. If you can manage, because ladies have a problem staying quiet. But if you can manage to stay quiet while I tell you what you're going to do in memory of Rachel Imeinu, who also kept quiet and did things b'sheket, without anybody knowing, it's going to be such a zchut for you to bring the Geulah. Because you know what happened, right? You know what happened. A few thousand years later, God is about to burn the Bet HaMikdash. And he wanted to send Am Yisrael into the Galut forever. Forever. You know what forever means? You know what in perpetuity means? Forever. The Medrash Rab of Eicha says the tzaddikim in the Shamayim didn't know what to do. What's going to be if Am Yisrael goes into Galus forever? That's it, we're done. So every tzaddik in Shamayim came crying to Hashem, please Hashem, don't destroy your holy house. Don't send your children into the Galut. Have mercy. Have mercy in the zchut of Akedat Yitzhak. In the zchut of Yitzhak Avinu, allowing himself to be brought on the Mizbeach. In the zchut of Yaakov, going through so many tzarot in life. Yaakov had one difficult challenge after the next, and he never complained, and he remained faithful to you, Hashem. Won't you have mercy on your children? Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, even Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom pleaded with Hashem to forgive us and not to send us into the Galut forever. And each of these tzaddikim, ladies, shocker of shockers, were given the same answer by Hashem. Hashem says to them, he's speaking to me about your children. Your children have sinned against me in the worst ways possible. So the answer is no. Leave me. I'm not going to forgive the people. And then the Medrash says that suddenly, Rachel Imeinu, literally it says kafza. She jumps up. She jumped up. And she begins to cry bitterly. Kol berama nishma. Her voice was heard throughout the entire Pamalia Shel Mala. Nehi bechi tamrurim. What a bitter cry. Rachel mevaka al baneha. She's crying over her children. Me'ana lehinachem al baneha ki enenu. She couldn't be consoled because of the children who she sees are no longer in Yerushalayim, and they're being taken away from their homeland. They're gone. And she's crying and crying. And then she tells Hashem, Ribono shel olam, is it possible that the rachamim, that the mercy that a human being is able to offer is greater than your rachamim? that possible? That we could be more Bali Rachamim than you? I had Rachamim on my sister because I never wanted her to feel any kind of shame or embarrassment, and I risked my entire life knowing I'm giving up my beloved Yaakov. I knew that I might never marry him. I knew that I would lose my place as one of the imahot of Am Yisrael, and I was ready to give up my entire future because of the Achamim I had on my sister. And I did everything quietly without anybody knowing, just not to embarrass her, because I wanted to act with Rachamim. So you, who are the most merciful, you cannot have Rachamim on your children. Hashem. It's not only that I had mercy on my sister, so she shouldn't be embarrassed. I gave her the simanim without her ever knowing that she was receiving them from me. Nobody knew, no one knew that I was giving her the key to her marriage to Yaakov. I did the best I could to save Leah a lifetime of shame and embarrassment. She tells Hashem, because imagine if the entire town, or even just a few people, found out that there were simanim between Yaakov and me in order to prevent him from marrying her. What kind of busha would that be? Imagine the busha that Leah would feel, and what kind of life she would lead knowing this truth. She would think to herself, Yaakov, you went that far? And you took such precautionary measures to make sure that you and I never connect? You were that worried that I would end up in your tent? And what's worse, others knew about it too? What a busha. What a chilpa. It would put her in the worst possible light in the eyes of other people and herself. People would say, what's wrong with Leah that Yaakov and even her sister Rachel had to make signs between them to make sure Leah never gets through that door? Something must be very wrong with Leah if they went so far as to do all of this in order to keep her away. The Gemara says, what a busha that would be. How would Leah feel? How would she feel knowing that everybody knows this? How would she feel being married to a man that did whatever he could to avoid being married to her? So Rachel tells Hashem, it's not just that I saved her from being embarrassed under a chuppah. I saved her a lifetime of embarrassment. I didn't want her to feel badly about herself. I didn't want her to experience the pain for the rest of her life. I had mercy on her. Will you not have mercy on your children? And I will end with Hashem's words. Hashem tells Rachel, Bishvilech, because of you, Rachel, because of what you did, I'm going to have mercy on your children. Stop crying, because you're going to be rewarded for this great act that you did of sparing your sister the shame and the embarrassment. And I am going to reward you for the great rachamim that you displayed V'shavu banim ligvulam. There's going to come a time in the future where your children are going to come home and they will be redeemed because of you. Because of the rachamim, I'm going to send them rachamim and bring them the Mashiach. Ladies, Rachel drew out from Hashem what no other tzaddik was able to do. You have what I'm telling you? She's the mother of Galut. She's also the mother of Geulah. And until today, Jews come from all over the world and they cry their hearts out at her kever. I once went on her yard site, the first experience in my life. It is packed, thousands and thousands of people are there now. I'll never forget, we were like crowded like sardines next to her kever. And here I come from America and everyone's like very like subdued, and you know, these people were like, oh my gosh, they were crying their hearts out. They were like, and many people saw Yeshuot by crying to her. You know why? They saw the Yeshuot. Because Rachel is the mother who feels for the people in a way that no one does. She has such a power in Shamayim that when she comes to the Ribono Shel Olam, he listens. Boy, does he listen. He can't say no to Rachel, the Gemara says. He can't say no to her. Why? Because of the great rachamim that she offered her sister. Rachamim, ladies, have rachamim on each other. And notice what happened in the end. The quiet chesed of Rachel that nobody knew about. Those are the things that even the Torah doesn't talk about. And that became a huge moment that changed our entire history. You and I are here today and going into the Geulah because of that quiet moment. Look what it means to step out of your own comfort zone to be sensitive to somebody else. Look how much you have to go out of your way not to hurt somebody, not to break somebody. You don't know what that person is going through. That's why you have to be very careful, say the Chachamim, not to do something that can completely destroy a person. Because you don't know what that person's carrying on their shoulders. You have no idea what it means to God when you have Rachamim on a fellow Jew. You have no idea. You know what Hashem says when He sees you responding with Rachamim? What He told Rachel. He'll look at you. What's your name? Gila. And He's going to say, Gila, I will never forget the rachamim that you showed your fellow sister. Never. The rachamim you showed, even when you knew that it was at great risk to your own life, it's going to be the ultimate rachamim that I'm going to show you, your family, and all of Am Yisrael. And therefore, right now, see how quiet you are? You see how quiet you are? You have no clue what shtika can do. Shh. Let me have the papers. Quiet chesed. There are young girls in Eretz Yisrael, in our kehillah, that are slowly moving away from Yadut. They're lost. They want guidance. Every Shabbat, They're moser nefesh, these girls, and they come at 4:30 in the afternoon when most of the neighborhood is out doing you know what. They come together, just a year devoy Torah. Even though some of them come in pants. Some of them just came from home where they've been texting their buddies, but they come. And we would like very much to continue, not just those Shabbatot, but what do we do at the Shabbat? We can't offer them food, there's no money. We can't offer them an activity, it's Shabbat. So they come. But we would like to expand that. We would like to give them an opportunity to meet during the week where we can bring them music, activities, make them feel like the Mesirut Nefesh that they did has a purpose. But we can't do that without your help. So tonight we're going to do a quiet chesed. We're not dancing with any oil, and we're not saying how much. We're going to pass around pieces of paper with pens. You're going to write your name, Be'ezat Hashem, if you want, and if you'd like to donate for this cause, how you want to donate, quietly, don't tell anybody. Don't tell the ladies sitting next to you. Do it quietly and then fold the paper and we'll collect it. That's a quiet chesed. Nobody knows how much you gave. Nobody knows anything. Only you and who? Hashem. But here's the trick. You have to be quiet when you're doing this. And when you get home, don't tell anybody. So Yiratzon. First of all, we should emulate Rachel's ways. And we should be the kind of women in Am Yisrael that are always be merciful, show mercy. Go out of your way to preserve the dignity and the neshama of another Jew. And may it be that like Rachel, your great mercy, and the kindness that you offer another person, the chesed you do in the quietest of ways, without anybody being involved or knowing, is going to create such a moment in history that's going to change your future. And because of you, Hashem is going to send the Mashiach with great rachamim in the same way you showed rachamim.